Morning. I was quite excited when I pitched up this morning. It said I was speaking in the Great Hall, and I thought, wow, Game of Thrones. Unfortunately, I missed it last night because I was busy writing the presentation, so no spoilers, please. So I just want to manage some expectations. I don't have a single chart in here of business performance in terms of visualization. I haven't got a single algorithm. What I'm going to talk about is the challenge of embedding data and an analytics culture into a 130-year-old organization who quite actively resist this way of working sometimes and need to be brought along the journey with you. So building the unicorn is, I guess, a people-based aspect of how to try and embed data into an organization like ours. So hopefully it will prove interesting. So, session objectives, things I want to talk about. So I will talk about our data-driven journey. We've been on this journey, I think, for about 3 years in terms of me being involved with it. Some would say it goes back a bit longer, maybe 15, 16 years, but I think really the acceleration and the maturity in the last 3 years has been quite impressive. I'll discuss some of the challenges that we've faced, and particularly, as I said, dealing with the aspect of the so-called unicorn, and I'll share some personal reflections on what I think a data culture is and what I'm trying to achieve at Amalis. So, I guess I've been working in the big data and analytics sphere now for a couple of years. Since 2012 or so was my first big data conference, very exciting. But what I'm finding is everybody who rocks up at my organization is essentially telling me that all I've got to do is buy their big data appliance and money will just fly out the back of it. So it doesn't matter what I'm doing, what sort of analytics I do, what sort of data I've got, what sort of organization or industry I'm in. As long as I buy one of these, I've just got to stand at the back and catch the pound notes and pass them to my bosses. It's obviously not going to be like that. And the challenge is, the campaign is so viral and it hits the inboxes of all of the most senior people in an organization, and relationships are leveraged, and it gets quite hard to actively maintain and to dampen down some of the enthusiasm, because I absolutely believe that big data and analytics is the way that every industry has to go now. This will give you commercial opportunity, but you have to approach it from a human point of view. You know, this won't do it by itself. And as people expand on this, they'll blind people with Hadoop and Internet of Things, real-time information, Spark, unstructured data, schemaless on entry. You can see a bewildered look along people's faces, but they all think, I must have one of those because it's going to make a difference. So I agree with all that. I just try and temper it slightly and try and make people realize that you can't forget the human aspect of these things. So when you rock up and you've paid the money for your big data appliance, you suddenly find it's not quite as easy to use as you thought it was going to be. It's hard to get data in. The process by which you move data around and manage it is hard. And what you'll find out is you're recommended to go out and find a unicorn. Unicorns are obviously hard to come by. This chap here, not easy to find. They all do like to wear hoodies as well, strangely. But you know, as we go through this presentation, trying to find one of these characters is really, really hard, but it's vital. And because the opportunities are so vast and complex and the systems are so hard to use, actually you need loads of these guys. And that becomes really, really hard because, as we know, data science has become the sexiest job of the 21st century. I mean, even TV adverts on like primetime television now are saying, be a data scientist from Reed or whatever it is who's advertising that. It's just incredible to think that that phrase has made it onto mainstream TV at that time of day. And the demand for data scientists is projected to exceed supply by more than 50% in 2018. I think that stat's a couple of years old. This is the only job advert that I tend to see coming up all the time. So it's really hard to find these guys. And if you do find one, I can guarantee that you'll find their inbox is being peppered with people on LinkedIn saying, come and work for me, come and work for me. I'll give you a lot more money and I'll give you challenging things to work on. And it's great that these people are motivated by more than just cash, because I really do think that some of the things that I will talk about through this presentation are, these people are not motivated purely by money. However, money is a factor for everybody and you can't get away from that. So how do you give people a rewarding job but make sure they've also got all the things they need to have as well? So given that you can't rely on finding a herd of unicorns kicking around London, you need to back up and have a different plan. And I need a new clicker as well. There we go. So I don't usually use this slide in public. This is an internal one, but I think the points I make here are relevant and important when you're trying to talk about these things. So I pitch this as the big data analytics ecosystem because you have to have all of these things in place. So in the center, in that sort of tripartite circle thing, At the top there, you see the data lake. So the first important thing is to make sure that everybody can get to your data. And if you've got silos of data, as organizations traditionally have, especially ours, where we've built over time, and some people have seen the advantages of data and they've built things under their desk over time. They've tried some algorithms, but they're doing it all by themselves, missing the massive corporate picture that goes on. It's really important to bring your data together in one single place and make sure that anybody who needs to get to it can get to it. The second thing is to make sure you've got a tool stack that will work with that platform. And things that are going to empower you to do what you want to do in terms of analysis and in terms of visualization. It's really important to think about how you're going to get your message out once you've decided what it is you found in terms of commercial insight and opportunity. So really think about that, and think about data governance at this point as well. So you need to know who's using what data and what they're using for, and importantly, the derivation of that data, so that if you're using it to make a decision, you understand what it is you're making a decision based upon. The one thing I would say around tools is do not expect it to stay static. This is a very exciting part of the marketplace, and it's a really dynamic thing. My advice, and certainly the one that I have chosen to follow my own advice, is pick a tool and stick to it, because all of these things will move ahead of each other at various points in time. Somebody comes up with amazing visualizations, somebody's got an incredible piece of ETL technology. They'll all catch up eventually. It's more important to stick with one and really work your method, work your process, and get people good at it than it is to change horses all the time. And down the bottom there, capable analysts, the unicorns that we're talking about. So all of those three, very important. If you don't have all three, frankly, you're going nowhere. But then around the outside, the things that really make this more than a luxury and turn it into a commercial advantage. So on the far side, strategic ideas. These people, they cannot just sit there and play with data and expect ideas to fall out the back. It doesn't work like that. You need to align yourself to the business strategy and be doing things people care about. Because in an organization that's paying your wages, if you're not doing something people care about, you will not have a job for very long. So finding something people care about and then really exploiting that is fundamental. There has to be a great feedback loop. And then on this side, you'll see, if you can read it, decision makers who understand information. So I'm not going to run down Marks & Spencer because it's a fantastic company. But we're 130 years old, and over time, we've become retail experts in many different formats. But the world is changing so quickly in terms of how people shop, and what channels they're going to approach, what products they're going to want to buy at what times of the day. So the decision-making process is much faster now and can expect to be more complex based on more data that perhaps you wouldn't have seen in the past. In the past, you'd have known that as winter approaches, people want to buy soup. But things change now, and you need to be on top of those sorts of events. So these two things are also fundamental for your ecosystem to have any chance of success. So given that the analysts are the people we're talking about, how do we find them? And an analyst is a unicorn. What is one of those things? So having started this journey 3 or 4 years ago, I went out to try and find some unicorns. And what I found was nobody else could find out what one of those was either. Nobody could agree what a unicorn is or what the right set of skills is. And apologies if we can't read all these quotes, I'm sure you'll see them afterwards. But essentially what you're seeing here is clippings of real job adverts from the past 2 weeks, where you can see that people are asking for somebody who's fresh out of university. They've learned all of the coding languages already, they've tried pretty much all the visualization tools and know which one to use in certain situations. And yet, in that short period of time, they've become incredibly commercially savvy. They've learned how to influence and manage CEOs of large organizations. And then in their spare time, I don't know what they're doing, but these are incredible people who frankly cannot exist. Does not exist. Unfortunately, I'm talking in a room full of people who probably are this person, so I'm sure I've invalidated this. However, it's very hard to be incredibly complex, incredibly technical, incredibly mathematically biased, but also incredibly good at visualizing and presenting a challenge to a business leader and getting them to buy into it. It's very, very, very hard. If you find one of those, they're going to pay a great deal of money for it, and you'll probably find, certainly in my experience, that your HR department will not understand why that person wants that salary, and you won't get them on your books. So how else do you do it? I did pull out in the middle there the most advanced of data science techniques, Excel and PowerPoint, an absolute must. So if anybody is looking for some training, I'd get on that Microsoft course as soon as you can. So what can we do instead? So given that that wasn't an avenue that was open to me, how do we start out on the journey to a data-driven culture? Well, what we did was firstly decide it was a good idea, and then sneak under the budgetary radar. So X number of thousands of pounds was what was required, We made sure we were -1 or 2 underneath that and managed to get something signed off that bought us 10 licenses for a tool called Spotfire, and they're outside. I'm not going to bang on about tools today because I do think you can make great advantages from any of the tools. It's the people that make the difference. But we chose Spotfire for a specific reason, and I can explain that to you if you want to approach me outside of this presentation. So we found 10 licenses, some money for 10 licenses. We found a server to install something on with a friendly IT chap who tucked it in somewhere. And we found 10 people in the business who were a bit bored of what they're doing and they wanted to make a difference. They wanted to try something new. We gave them 4 days worth of training, and we downloaded a whole bunch of the normal business reports presented in tools like Business Objects or Excel and gave them those and said, this is your database, do what you can with it. It was so exciting. I mean, this was Easter 2013 when we did this. After 4 weeks, we smashed it out the park. I don't know how else to express it. It was probably the most exciting thing I've been involved with. New insights surfaced. This always gives me a nice feeling of smugness. If you approach a business person and say, did you know this? And they go, wow, how did you do that? Where did you get that data? I said, well, that's the report you've got over there, but you can't see the insight inside it because you're using the wrong techniques and the wrong approach to data. What you need to do is try something new. And we gave people some incredible things that they'd never seen before, created purely out of everything they'd always had. Performance step change. One of the exciting things here was freeing these business chaps from the IT function. You know, in the old days, to be fair, in parts of the organization it still exists, but the request for data to be able to do something with would slow you down enormously, and then there'd be the red tape of why do you want to do that, and should you be doing that, and before you know it, you're back into your day job again. So giving these guys a chance to do this and really step change their performance meant we could do things that we'd never tried before, and the things we did try, we achieved in a very short space of time compared to what we usually would have. This is the most exciting piece though, collaboration. Getting all of these guys in a room together and saying, you've all got the data, you've all got the tool, you're all doing something amazing and exciting, go at it. We found they started to train each other, they'd share ideas. Nobody thought that they were the perfect article and they couldn't learn from anybody else. They all shared their data and their ideas, and we ended up with something that's much greater than the individuals. And they were self-sufficient. They didn't need any help. They had all the data, they had the tool, and they had the backing. They could just crack on and do stuff. And just to reference visualization, the back end of this, when we went to our executive board and said, it's really important that we work in this way, we showed them what we built in Spotfire, and these guys were up out of the seat, poking the screen, saying, what is that dot over there? What's that on a chart? We'd never seen these guys get up and disturb themselves from their BlackBerry in a board meeting before. So this is a really exciting thing, and visualization is the key that gets people involved. It's great to have a brilliant algorithm, but unless you can express that to somebody and excite them in a commercial sense, you're going nowhere. So visualization is so important. So picking up on that collaboration theme, which seemed to be one of the most exciting elements, we tried to think about how we could then build this capability outwards inside the organization. And we're lucky enough to have a thriving analyst community now where we've connected people together. There's about 250, 260 people now inside M&S, joined through an electronic network where we share ideas because we're all shared across teams and different business buildings and areas. So the social network is the only place we can really combine. And what we've found is that there's more than one skill set that makes a data scientist. So rather than hunting for one who's the maximum of everything, we've tried to build a training course and working with a company called Mango Solutions, who really seem to have understood the collaborative aspect that we experienced and have driven it forward into what you see here, the data science radar. I recognize that this is probably quite small for you, but I'll just run around the outside. So at the top, we've got a data wrangler, somebody who can take data, process it, gather it together, probably dedupe and cleanse it, but perhaps their skill set isn't the visualization element. You've got a modeler who can select and fit the most appropriate statistical and mathematical models to best represent information contained in the data. Down the bottom, a programmer who can perform a variety of data processing and analytic tasks in at least one language. And we've listed Python, R, and SAS there. All of those are present in our organization now. We've got a technologist down the bottom who's perhaps broadly experienced with technology and more excited by the potential of these things. A communicator who can bridge between business and analytics, which is a really important role, and a visualizer who can turn your message into something people can digest. I've taken this test, and this is me. So you can do this test online. It's quite fun. It's only about 20 questions at maximum. I'm a technologist, and I think that's probably quite fair. It's been a long time since I tried to be an analyst. Around 2000, 2001, I think I was pretty competent. A long time ago. Nobody would let me near a tool nowadays. But I'm a technologist. I'm really excited about the potential of these sorts of things to make a difference to the business. And I drive myself quite hard to make my colleagues understand that as well. But I'm pretty weak on programming. Bizarrely, I was a programmer at one point. I'm weak on modeling. Actually, I'm pretty weak on everything. But technology and visualization and communication are the things that I'm pretty good at. The point here is understanding what somebody's good at and then making them really good at it. It's not trying to make them competent at the other things. It's about making sure that you recognize what somebody's good at and then combining them together in a team. So when I say building the unicorn, the scientist here was a really strong programmer, pretty weak on the other side. If I put them together with this dude over here, who's a bit of a visualizer and communicator, all of a sudden your message can come out to other people. And then if I mix you together with a technologist who understands what the next thing over the horizon is going to be, then I'm starting to think ahead and model something out. And then I've got this character who's a modeler as well. So what you can see is I haven't gone out and wasted months and months and possibly years hunting for a unicorn who I can't afford. I've built a unicorn from the existing people in my organization who are easier to find and who I can move among other projects because their skill sets are highly valuable. So building the unicorn is what we've achieved, and that's what we're progressing on now. We're not hunting down those hard-to-find individuals. Should I stamp on this rather than push it? Is that easier? Here we go. Right, so having understood that radar, we then turned it into a training program and recognizing that we need to train the business to receive data as well as train people to turn data into insight. So this training program is what I'm now running inside M&S. So down the far side are a series of courses to help people understand how data can help them be better at their job, and crucially, how they can ask the right question of an analyst. So don't build me one of those. Here's the problem I've got. How would you go about it? So how do we reverse back in the chain and get them to understand how to get value out of the analysts that we've created? And then we give people the chance to test a hypothesis. So training people in a scientific test and learn methodology is important as well. And then some basic SQL training for people who don't want to progress too far down the data science career, but do want to be competent and useful. And then on this side, what we call the Data Science Factory, it's in our first year of training, and we've gone through that radar assessment, trained out some of the skills on those 6 pillars, and then we're going to do a final assessment, which is dragging on a bit. There's somebody in the room who's suffering that, and I do apologize, Kate, but I promise the data's been uploaded this morning. You can start when you get back to work. So we are now recognizing that we need to develop the organization, and we're actively trying to do so. I should have worked out last night. So all I say here is don't take my word for it. I'm pitching what I think is a nice story, I hope, but we've got 2 people in the room who you can hear from this afternoon. So Kate Huish, who's the insight manager from our foods analytics team, and Justin Subok, I hope I got that right, Justin, thank you, good nod, who's from our website.com team. These 2 guys have shown the benefits of moving from Spotfire and a visualization tool set, and then the maturity through into some coding languages and other opportunities to do things that once you get confident, you move outside of a framework to work with. So drop into their course this afternoon and see what they're saying. I think I've got 5 minutes left. Looking for 3. Right, I'll go very fast. Personal thoughts on data culture. I talked about how companies rock up and blind people with science. And this I nicked off another consultancy that I found in my Twitter feed, but I think it's a beautiful quote. So, when you want to build a ship, do not begin by weaving sails, gathering wood, reading the stars and assigning tasks, but rather awaken in the hearts of men the yearning for the vast and boundless sea. I love that. That's not getting too technical. It's not getting into task mode. It's saying, wouldn't it be amazing if we could be there? How do we get there? But don't you want to be on that journey? And I think that's what I'm trying to take back inside M&S in the technology sphere. So what do I think a data-driven culture will feel like for the guys I'm trying to sell it to? Well, the first thing is questions. Questions become really important as opposed to statements. You know, we've invested heavily in solutions that tell us what we did last week and last year, and it's great to know that, but it doesn't tell you what we're going to do next week or where the opportunity really is. And I really want to see the organisation mature from just reading statements to asking questions and finding ways to resolve those. Analytical capability is therefore fundamental, and I think data scientists and insight people who can apply context to that number are really important and need to be everywhere within our organisation to inform decision makers. And the most exciting word, relevance. We need to be relevant to our customers at the time when they want to make a decision with the product they want to buy, and data gives us the opportunity to be that person. So, believe me, I've failed many times, and these are some of the reasons why. I get really excited by this. Try and do too much too soon. It does not work. You have to manage expectations. You have to say to people, this will be amazing, but it won't be amazing tomorrow. But maybe in a couple of months' time, we'll do something incredible. So don't try to do too much too soon. Start small, keep off the radar a little bit, get something incredible together, build some anecdotes and stories, and get ready to share those with other people. Commercial teams don't understand what you're doing. Honestly, go back to that soup example. I know what's best for my customer. Customers will tell you one thing and do another, and data always shows this. You know, they'll say, oh yeah, general election's a great example. I'm going to vote X. But as soon as you come to put the box on the paper, you're voting somewhere else. So don't believe what people say, believe what the data tells you about what they do. So, as I say, if you build it, they will not come. Our big data platform stood static for a couple of years before we really started using it. We need to show people why it's exciting. We need to understand their challenges and their strategic priorities, solve for them, and then they ask more and more questions, and that builds the culture. Insight has to be embedded in the process. If this is a little adjunct that you do alongside stuff because it's fun, it will not last. It has to be part of the routine and part of the business process. So you need to work on their opportunities and give people the chance to be heroes. If you can make heroes, you're onto a winner. Obviously, business politics, this will always stand in your way, so you need to find a way around this. Be patient. I find this in all project management. Don't try and do everything right now, and be patient. At some point, if you've got the right stakeholders, you will find the right opportunity. Your skill is to know when that is. Let the data carry you forward. So start small, find somebody who cares, find a challenge that people care about, find an analyst, preferably internal, because they'll understand your business and your data, and they won't be somebody you're training up to understand your business. Choose the tool and the method, find the data, work the data, find the insight, make an incredible decision that you could have made before, document that, spread the word, make some heroes, share some stories. You'll find your next opportunity is bigger and faster than the last one. I guarantee you that. And the data-driven culture isn't something you just sign off. It's not a project with an end date. You can't just say, yeah, in May, I've become data-driven. This is a constantly evolving thing. It's a deep-rooted, ongoing change around the way people do stuff. But if you do it well, business decisions just become common sense. If you tell people I'm going to empower you to make a data-driven decision, they'll look at you blankly. If you give them a compelling reason to make a decision and show why they need to make it, they will make it. Because these people are all about trading and they're all about commerciality. So it's your job to present your message in a way that people can't back away from. So I leave you with this. My update to a classy quote is probably not so classy. When you want to build the data-driven culture, do not begin by buying the on-trend technology, recruiting a team of data scientists, and raising expectations to an unrealistic level, but rather awaken in the hearts of your commercial colleagues the yearning for insight, because if you can make somebody a hero, they will follow you wherever you want to go. And that's it. Thank you very much for the opportunity.